China just won while the US alienated itself. April the 2nd, 2025. US President Donald Trump stands outside the White House and proudly proclaims that today is Liberation Day. He then shows off some cardboard cutouts that list the amount of tariffs he is going to impose, effective immediately, on every other nation. There's slow and confused applause in the audience. The journalists sigh. Trump is grinning and posing for the cameras while stock markets around the world tank. One of these tariffed countries stands out the most, Trump's most feared adversary, the People's Republic of China. It was one of the higher receivers of the mad tariff king, 34% on Liberation Day, which makes the total tariff, including the earlier ones, 54%. How did China respond just a few hours ago? They said, meh, no biggie, and countered with 34% tariffs on US goods coming into China like it was patting dust off its shoulder. This Wild West shotgun tariff approach will only serve to help China become the next preferred global trade partner. Let's get into it. The response to these mad tariffs were, unsurprisingly, negative. Stock markets all over the world saw red. The US was deemed an unreliable partner by many countries, and Trump's main geopolitical rival, China, didn't flinch and even reciprocated with equal tariffs of their own. Media all over the world started lambasting the formula used for coming up with the tariff percentage, calling it a joke and the Trump admin a circus. Dumb Donald was grinning like he did something great, but the people are laughing at you, not with you. Xi was probably laughing in his Beijing office at the extraordinary incompetence shown by Trump and his handlers. Free lunch to gobble up the trade from other countries, he probably thought to himself. Thanks, Donald. Meanwhile, the EU, along with most nations, said that these tariffs will only harm trade and cooperation between them and the US. Now let's look at the rationale behind the tariffs and debunk them. For some bizarre reason, Dumb Donald thinks he can make America great again by starting a trade war on the whole world. He believes that this will bring back manufacturing jobs, increase government revenue through tariffs, and harm his geopolitical rivals while helping boost his own nation. I've got some bad news for you, Donald. Let's break these points down and debunk them using facts and reasoning. Firstly, the cost of employment in the countries he put the highest tariffs on, which are mainly Southeast Asian countries, are far lower than America's costs. This translates into lower costs of finished goods and products. What the hell do you think will happen to the costs of these goods if manufacturing was brought back to the US and you had to pay everyone a union wage of $20 an hour? There's a reason a 40-inch flat-screen TV has gone down in price massively the past decade. If it was made in America, it would spike up to over $1,000. Secondly, government revenue will increase from tariff collection only if trade remains the same or increases. Guess what will happen if you start a trade war with the whole world, Donald? Trade with your country will go down, that's what. Maybe the tariffs will be enough to offset this reduced trade, but I doubt it. Third, will this really harm his geopolitical rivals? This reduced trade with the US will only leave surplus goods on the market. Somebody will have to absorb these goods. This is where China and the EU step in. Both developed and large economies that rival the US, both are consumption-heavy and would relish at the opportunity of cheaper goods. The poor Southeast Asian nations, who were tariffed hard, have a lot to offer and are going to be willing sellers to these countries. ASEAN is already a major economic bloc in which China is the main trade partner, and BRICS now has most of the world's GDP and population in its group. The Belt and Road Initiative is smashing its way through Central Asia and around India, into Europe and Africa, securing massive contracts to build ports, highways and mining operations. Remember the last time Trump started a trade war with China back in 2018? Well, China's economy said, I don't care, and grew its GDP from 14 trillion to 18 trillion. Before we move forward, please drop a like, comment and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Thanks. The American century ends, and so the curtains close on America's golden age. Turns out there was no such thing as American exceptionalism. It was just the only large and developed nation not to be bombed to death in World War II. Given enough time to develop and industrialize, other countries caught up and will surpass you. China is on your tails, and with their growth numbers, they will surpass you sooner or later. The economist Paul Krugman told us why having a trade deficit was a good thing for the US and helped bolster their golden age. He said that the deficit allows America to export US dollars in exchange for cheap goods. This means that the American people get cheap goods, and that the countries receive US dollars, which are used as the global reserve currency. That is to say, the US dollar is seen as the most trustworthy and reputable currency, and so their government can issue bonds much easier and at much more favorable rates than basically any other country, thus fueling the American economy. But it seems that that's all over now with these mad tariffs and isolationist policies. Get out of here, America. The new cool kid on the block is coming. He already has far more cool and shiny objects than you do. Just compare any tier 1, 2 or even 3 city to any American city and you will have an answer to your question: which one is the next superpower? Smart cities with hundreds of skyscrapers, a system that integrates everything onto your phone, in which you can pay for anything and everything with a single tap, high-quality clean metro systems that are rarely late. Or old dirty concrete cities with urban sprawl and an outdated metro system that smells of piss and is frequented by homeless drug addicts and crazy people. I know my answer. Don't even get me started on the 50,000 kilometers of high-speed rail that connects the entirety of China, or the fact that shipbuilding capabilities in America are almost non-existent. Conclusion. Trump's trade war against the world is a catastrophe for America and its people. It is both a domestic and foreign policy failure, as it will either push up the price of goods for consumers or reduce the availability of certain goods, all the while failing to contain China. In fact, it helps China solidify its position as a new superpower, as countries all over the world will be much more willing to align with China on economic and diplomatic affairs. The US, like a cornered dog, has only one option to retain its power, that is to lash out and tariff everybody. In doing so, it showed that it is losing its hegemony and must resort to trade wars to balance the playing field. BRICS and ASEAN are on the rise, China is making inroads all across the world, and the EU and Africa are turning away from the US. The next century will be very interesting. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, comment and subscribe. Thanks for watching.